So the Marlins, obviously, NBA free agency, Damian Lillard, all that stuff. It's the main story most days here leading up to the free agency getting going on Friday. But the Marlins, the best part of the Marlins now, like I've been telling you guys, the best part of the Marlins now is it's not just about holding us over until Dolphins training camp starts. The Marlins are giving us something to watch on a nightly basis. And I really found last night to be must-see TV as the Marlins on the first night of this series in Boston. They beat the Red Sox 10-1. Joe Frisaro, we love having Joe on the program here. Man on second, of course. Nobody covers the Marlins MLB better than Joe does. And I was saying yesterday, Joe, first of all, thanks a lot for hanging out with us today. And I was saying yesterday on my show, I got the Marlins on kind of in the background on a nightly basis, okay? But now, last night took center stage for me because I felt, okay, they're in Boston. It's Fenway Park. That's cool. They're obviously 11 games over 500. That's cool. Sandy's on the hill. That's cool. Jazz is returning last night. There was a lot happening last night where it really had my attention. And I think there were probably some other people who felt the same way going into last night.
Oh, I agree. And Zaz, first of all, thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, you know what? This is for baseball in general. This has kind of been the upside down year. The Mets are bad. The Padres are bad. I'm missing somebody. But these teams are bad. Marlins are good. The Reds are good. The Diamondbacks are good. It's like, that's the beauty of sports, obviously. It doesn't always go as we draw it up in early season, spring training, and so forth. But what's catching me with the Marlins, and I agree with you, I think last night was a really important game on many fronts. Obviously, I'm one that doesn't get too high or too low over 162. I kind of seen enough baseball to know that, even 12 games can collapse pretty quickly. But, when I was looking at the lineup, getting Jazz and Segura back, because I don't really think the Marlins have enough arsenal to really make that July trade, without their farm system isn't very good. Their pitching without, is weakened now with, meaning depth-wise with Rogers hurt. Johnny Cueto's on the IL and not looking good. Hadn't looked good before he got hurt. They had some injuries in there. Guys like Dax Fulton, like getting surgery, so you can't really trade him for a big bat. So they're kind of going to have to go with what they have. Yes, they'll make moves. You can always make a trade. But getting Jazz and Segura back was almost like their position player trades.
Yeah.
Then you started looking at the balance of it. If you'd asked me, Jazz, on day one, Jazz is hitting cleanup, and I think he might have been. I didn't like it. I think Jazz is a catalyst, first or second in the order, get the speed dynamic going. But I actually looked at it and liked it. I give Skip credit for that because you got a guy hitting 400 leading off. You're not messing with that. The guy behind him is one of the top home run hitters in baseball this year and said clutch homers in Soler. You're not moving that. So I'm not changing the 1-2 dynamic. And then, Brian De La Cruz, until he proves otherwise, is getting the job done in the 3-hole, which made sense to now you go right, left. You got, or left, but you now Jazz fits in there. And what does he do? He does Jazz things. Jazz hits a double in his first at bat. He makes things happen on the bases. Jazz makes a difference because he brings energy. And you just have to keep Jazz focused and under control so he's not just slamming into walls recklessly. That's what you got to watch with Jazz. But it was a fun game. And Sandy's stepping up, and it's going to be a fun ride. You just ride it as long as you can. I still, if you ask me, I still think it's kind of a fourth place roster, but that's irrelevant now because it's a matter of enough has happened this season for the Marlins that there's that belief and that feeling. And to be honest with you, I watch a lot. I watch about 4 or 5 games a day. I'm usually turning the TV off about 2 a.m, watching the West Coast games. Not a lot of teams are playing fundamentally sound baseball. The Marlins are one of them. They use the whole field. They don't have guys with just huge, big swings. And they're it's some very simple elementary baseball, and they're stomping people, and they just crushed the Red Sox yesterday. Whether they win another game in the series or not, they didn't get swept.
Right.
So they'll go into Atlanta at least with a win on the road.
Let's talk a little bit about Jazz here. Now, I was a big fan of Mattingly, but Mattingly, older manager. We know that he clashed with Puig when he was in Los Angeles. Jazz is the kind of young player. He can hot dog every now and then. Schumacher's a young manager. How much do you think that helps as far as the manager-player relationship that Jazz has got a guy there who's on the younger side and was in the big leagues? I mean, what are we talking, like 8 or 9 years ago?
Yeah. I think it probably helps in relatability a little bit. I think right now, I honestly think Luis Arraez changed the whole team and the whole makeup. I think he's clearly been their most valuable player and one of the top 2 or 3 players in the National League in terms of the MVP race with Ron Acuna and I think Corbin Carroll out in Arizona, who probably should be a runaway for Rookie of the Year and also is going to get a lot of MVP votes. I think those 3 have been the most impactful players for their teams, and let me tell you why. I think Arraez has basically done more for hitting than and I'm no disrespect to Brant Brown or the hitting crew that they have in the coaching staff. But I think when you have a guy, this is unprecedented. I've seen a ton of baseball, and I got to go back. I'm thinking of like when Wade Boggs or whatever was hitting like 390 for the year. This guy should be hitting close to 370, 360, then taking his average when he slumped a little bit out in Seattle a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
When he was down to like 380, to bring that up to 400 or 399, whatever he is exactly now, that is just ridiculous, getting 2 hits a night. And what has he done? All of a sudden you see Joey Wendell. Now Joey Wendell will use the whole field, but you see everybody looking to kind of what they're taking what's given. It's so elementary, but he does it. So I think, answer your question, I think Arraez has set the tempo and Jazz wants to fit in. And that's nothing on.
I think that's a great point. I think that's a really good point because I think there's an element where now Jazz doesn't have to feel like he needs to be the leader of the team. Just go out there, have fun, get base hits.
Exactly. I think a lot of just good coaching, managing, NFL coach, NBA coach, I think a lot of that is just kind of getting out of the way. You have to speak up when you have to. And then no knock on Skip. Skip deserves a ton of credit. But I just think more if the team was more of 3 games under 500 right now, we might be having a completely different conversation. So I still think that's a little bit of Sandy's issue as he felt so much pressure to be the man. And now I think as soon as Sandy just kind of relaxes and just accepts that pitchers give up runs and just do your thing, you win you win titles and championships as a team. You can win the Cy Young or Rookie of the Year, MVP as an individual, and I covered plenty of them. I didn't cover, Sandy. I covered as a Cy Young. I covered 3 or 4 Rookie of the Years, all on losing teams outside of 03 with Dontrell. And then Stanton in 17 MVP. On pretty much a bad team. Good players, good kind of nucleus, not a good overall team. So you could always have somebody run out and get you numbers, and then we can make that argument. But you win titles and go to the playoffs as a team, and you saw it with the Panthers, you saw the Heat, just how it all comes together, and there's a different guy every night. Yes, you might have your leader stepping up, but baseball especially, you can't count on one guy all year long. But it's amazingly the constant has been Luis Arraez, hitting 400 again. People don't realize just how ridiculous that is. And
it's getting. You would have a better idea than me. I feel like Luis Arraez and as a result, the Marlins, they're getting a lot of national attention now. Not because they're 12 games over 500. I mean, that will do it, soon enough. But because everyone kind of has their eye on Luis Arraez, right?
Yeah, Ted Williams, 1941. It was never going to happen again. That was the last time a 400 hitter. And this guy, like I said, he's put himself in a really interesting spot where it's going to be hard for him to hit 370. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. That's an amazing year, but he's got to go to a pretty bad slump to finish at 370. The longer he's doing this, and we're basically, I don't know the exact number of games they play, but we're about to hit July. So it's either 81, 82 or getting close to it.
Yeah,
we're at the halfway part. Does that mean he's going to do it? I'd say no, but the way teams pitch him, the way the sport is now, I really think the Marlins are capitalizing by the lack of advanced scouting. Because I think there's so many teams that just use the analytics playbook and they just look and they'll say, guy hits, 180 against sliders and 250 against fastballs, so only throw him sliders. They don't set up those pitches the way, when you really kind of saw the way the game. And I'm saying that because as someone watching, just to see the lack of adjustments by teams that, the Marlins, Zach Greinke was in town. He's with the Royals now. I was doing some freelancing for MLB. I was actually doing when the Marlins kind of put the number on the Royals and swept them a couple of weeks back. And Greinke's as astute and baseball savanty as anybody in the sport, and maybe who's ever played the sport. And he noted that because he would know, and he can make hitters look stupid, even throwing 88, 89 miles an hour, because he could get them to chase a slider, look at an 85-mile-an-hour fastball down the middle, just keep them all off balance. He complimented the Marlins. He said, they did not chase my slide. They did not go out of the strike zone. So they already are recognizing. And if you watch, like I was watching when Yuri Perez was just carving up the Pirates, and because I'm watching the game a little different. Everyone could watch and look at numbers, and I could always go look at the numbers after the game. I'm looking at their swings, I'm looking at their approach, and they got guys on the Pirates just going up there. That Yuri, he threw 3 straight sliders, not any of them near the strike zone, and the guys all swung. Like if after the first time you did that, you would think a hitting coach or someone would say, make them throw that over the plate, but they didn't. They literally would swing at 3 straight pitches out of the zone. So Yuri's like, why do I need to throw him a strike? I don't need to throw him a strike. He's going to strike himself out. That's the stuff I think the Marlins are doing better than these teams they're playing right now. Those teams have not. I think the Braves are going to be a real test, and that's not to say it's absolute and everything I'm saying is quantifiable but I'm just saying how I see it.
Let's talk a little bit about Yuri Perez. Can you give me can you get for the Marlin fan who's just starting to watch now? Because like we said, we're in the middle of the summer. They're starting to pay real close attention. Maybe they haven't seen so much of Yuri Perez yet. Can you give me a recent comp? Give me a little bit on Yuri Perez and what we've seen so far.
Well, the comp is Sandy Alcantara, only because people naturally say Jose because Jose was 20 years old. Yuri's 20 years old. Jose won Rookie of the Year. Yuri's off to a historical start for rookies. Jose threw hard. Yuri throws hard. But Yuri's like 6'8".
Yeah, it's the height.
Jose was like 6'1", and stocky. One's like he's basically if you go back and look at, and it's not even the best comp, only I'm going to give this to you by just how the approach for a hitter would be like a right-handed Randy Johnson or when Andrew Miller was doing so well in those long relief roles with the Cardinals, because he's like 6'9", and it just is like arms and legs coming at you. But from the right side, the ball, he throws 100 anyway. And the ball just, when your extension is just basically, it's almost like you're touching the hitter on the shoulder. So so everyone says, why don't you just go get a basketball player and make him a pitcher if this is so easy? Well, it's so super hard for guys that long to stay in sync and repeat delivery. I'm sure that, as great of players as NBA players are, you could probably get a similarly built 6'8", 6'9" NBA player and teach them fundamentals and throwing a baseball. But to have them, because so much could go wrong easily. And that's why Andrew Miller didn't pan out in Miami. He just never had everything in sync. And then once he finally did, he found that role. So Perez, it's just because of that size. Sandy's long and lean, like Sandy's like 6'4", 6'5", but he's that kind of body type, and the arsenal is the same. What's really stunned me with Yuri is his changeup and slider have been so good at the big league level that he's been, he's just outfoxing hitters and overpowering them. And you always measure second, third time through the league because the league sees you.
Yeah.
But to be honest, I know there's a lot of talk, shut them down because of innings.
Well, yeah. Is there a plan there? Are they going to take a break?
You know what? My plan for them would be is leave them alone and ride it until you don't. Because I think, what are you going to, you're just going to, he's showing, I look at this way, Zaz. I'm not going to pay attention to his innings as much as his pitch counts and his stressful pitches or innings. If you're just breezing through 6 innings on 80 pitches, what is shutting you down?
Right.
All you're going to do is that's going to get him hurt. Because, don't throw for 2 weeks. Now throw. So much of professional sports is rhythm. And, if you're not, and you're in a pattern, you're in a rhythm, I throw every 5 days. Okay, maybe a couple occasion out there every 6 day just for that extra break. Just don't extend them. You just don't you monitor. To me, I'm not sitting around. Let's be honest. It's all made up. 150 innings, 100. It's all made up. It's just somebody says it and someone has some data to support it and they feed it to the media and it's the narrative. And then it gets on Twitter and it's, oh my gosh, how can you throw them 180 innings?
It's interesting though, right? Because it's not just that he's young, it's a young arm and, whatever limit you want to have him on. This is not a bad team. And while we're only halfway through the season, you do want to make sure that you have him for maybe a playoff series. Like, wasn't there the 1 year years ago? Like, did the Nationals shut down Strasburg in the postseason?
And it was disastrous. They didn't get they were so cavalier. They thought they won that series that they would shut him down and then kind of occasionally pitch him, and they got bounced right away. And then Strasburg, when they won the World Series, was a star.
Yeah,
he got hurt after that, and his story is pretty tragic. But everybody, if everything's easy for him, what are you going to send him to the minors? To just what's he going to do? So batting practice? Right. You just tell them to just relax. It's just again, if they fall out of it, let's say everything they get some injury, and you're not wishing that, but you don't know what it's going to look like in August. If it looks like he hits the wall in August, maybe Trevor Rogers is coming back by then. You know what I mean? You just ride it without worrying about managing it. Because I remember, talking to Mike Redman, when Jose was a rookie, they put so many limits on Jose. Jose, don't pitch. Jose, don't pitch. Don't do this. And then the next year, he got Tommy John surgery.
I remember I was at that game that we all knew was going to be his last game of the season. He actually hit a home run in what ended up being his last at bat. I remember being at that game because I wanted to see, this is the last time we're going to see him. All right, let's make sure we go to the game.
Yeah. It was like, and that just kind of taught me, we create so many roadblocks for the athlete. We are like, no, you can't. Let the players tell you he can't. And that's what I'm saying. That's not saying go throw 250 innings with Yuri Perez, but it's like he hasn't hit the wall yet. He hasn't shown any red flags, meaning he's either mentally fatigued, physically fatigued. If you're just going to go out there and make games look like you're just, throwing on the backfield free and easy and getting some guys up there in the box, I'm not stopping that. Maybe I don't pitch him in the seventh inning, but maybe I just say 70 pitches is enough. Well, and I think when we kind of started this off talking about last night being a big game, and this is another reason why I thought it was a big game. Many of the Marlins wins have been nail biters, right? And that's kind of part of the appeal. They come back from 4 runs. They get a big hit in the 9th inning. But what does that mean? It means Andrew Nardi is going to have like 90 appearances. Dylan Floro about the same.
Right.
What the good teams are doing, what the Braves are doing, what the Diamondbacks are doing right now is they're putting so much separation because their offense is scoring runs. They don't need their closer last night. Like the Diamondbacks beat the Rays, the best team in baseball last night, 8-4. They had 5-run lead. They gave 4 right back. Then they added on to make it 7, then put it up and made it 8-4. What did that mean? Their closer didn't have to pitch. So they're pitching their other relievers. The Marlins have not had those many games like that. Obviously, you're not going by 9 runs every night. But what I'm saying is the Marlins, if they're going to go to the postseason, their offense is going to have to do more. They can't be in the bottom third in runs scored. They're going to have to take the pressure off the pitchers. So Yuri Perez or Braxton Garrett, or, I think Sandy pitched so much mentally thinking he can't get up a run because the team won't score any runs. I think that kind of is factored into him. There's more to it than that, obviously. But I think that the good teams put enough points on the board, runs on the board, to take the pressure off their bullpen, to make it, this is an easy night tonight. We get this guy's my mop-up guy. He could go in there. He could get the last couple of outs. And meanwhile, I'm saving A.J. Putz. I'm saving Dylan Floro. I'm saving Nardi. I'm saving Tanner Scott. Because it seems like every win they had up until last night, it saved maybe 1 or 2 others, had been that, oh my gosh, nail biter. I got to get my closer up. The closer's got to be in the game. That's not sustainable for 162.
Joe, can you give me some kind of update on Sixto Sanchez? I feel like it's been 10 years since I've seen him. Are we ever going to see him again?
Yeah, I mean, the guy's coming back from surgery. Shoulders are hard. I can't imagine we'll see him in the big leagues this year. It's just, it's frustrating, but I think, he's still, the amazing thing is 24, 25 years old still. So you don't ever really want to quit on a player, especially that. But I just think, just the thought of being able to throw him into this rotation, like it's tantalizing, but
It's been
No,
forever.
I just you just can't rely on it because he just has improved health. And I'm not the one at me who says make him the closer or reliever, because sometimes that's even harder because you're potentially throwing
You
two
got
or
to
three
come at
days in a
100
row.
miles an hour, you know.
Yeah. I
Right
mean,
now.
if he's healthy, if he's healthy, it's just a transition where normally you do that, Saz, when you have a healthy Sixto, but maybe he's not the starter profile because he's really a fastball slider pitcher to change. You need at least 3 quality pitches to be a rotation guy, 4 the better. But to be a reliever, a fastball and a slider, fastball changeup, a cutter, that you can be a pretty good reliever with 2 pitches. So a lot of times that's the profile you do. You kind of make the switch then. That's when like Adam Connolly, who never really had 3 or 4 pitches, was probably always a reliever profile. If they just said throw 97 and here's your slider or curveball or whatever, and just go with those 2, you should be good enough to get the job done. But the hardest commodity is just like trying to find a quarterback at the highest level is starting pitching, and that's why you see so many of these failed experiments, because they always give anyone with any type of arm talent the opportunity to become a starter before. I would do it the other way. I would sit around and say that if you want to look at numbers and probability, 80% of those guys you think are starters are relievers. So cut the BS and just make them a reliever. And I think the Rays are excellent at that. That's why they're so successful. They identify very quickly and just put the person in the role then and go with it. Or they just say, you're my opener. You're a reliever, but you're a starter. You go 2 innings most, and we're not going to expose you. Thanks, good job. You got us to the 3rd inning. We're up 2-0.
Joe, finally here, the Marlins are 12 over right now. We're at essentially the halfway point of the season. How many wins does it take to get one of those wild card spots?
I think because there are 3 of them, and I'm still waiting for. I honestly I want to say 86-ish, but that could be a little low because the Phillies are there, the Dodgers, Diamondbacks, and Giants. One of those 3 or 2 of those 3, possibly all 3, will be in the Central champion. So that's 5. So now you're down to 1. So if the Mets go on a roll, are the Cardinals going to go on a roll? Are the Reds real? It's like, so if I'm a Marlin fan, I want 90 wins just to make it safe, just to say you're going to go
90
there.
wins the rest of the way. We're talking, 44 and 38. I think they'd have to be the rest of the way.
That's doable. You don't want to really back into the playoffs. So it's, 90 wins.
Yeah, team that's 12 over right now. If you can go just 6 over the second half of the year, that should be doable.
Yes. Now, it doesn't mean that it won't be 85 wins, but you can't bank on everyone sucking. You gotta. I always you win your way into the playoffs.
And the Braves are impossible to catch. There's no chance there, right? They're impossible.
Probably based on who they are, and like the Marlins, they got some guys that are going to come off the IL. And keep this in mind, I think the Braves are better positioned to probably make that trade. That the Marlins. What do I trade for if I'm the Marlins? Man, I mean, there's the thing about it is the Mets aren't going to be sellers because you can't have that payroll and be sellers. Cardinals aren't going to be sellers. So it's like these teams that are going to be the Padres. Now they're a disaster.
I know you said they don't necessarily have the farm system, but can it be Bruce Sherman opens up the wallet and says, you know what, we'll take on a big contract that a team's trying to get rid of?
You can, but I don't even know. I'd have to really think about it because you might be limited to. You might just be limited to Pirates by then. You know what I mean? It's like, so everyone's going to want the same.
So many teams are in the hunt because you got playoff teams.
Yeah. That's the thing with so many. That's what I say. Are the Padres really this bad? Are the Cardinals really this bad? It's like all they have to do is go on some sort of mild run, and they're close to 500 at the break, at the All-Star break or the deadline, and then you still got August and September to go. So. Yes, I'm always a believer if you kind of know where you are, kind of beat the market. But sometimes there's not the right trade to be made, But this is the year to do it because the Dodgers are down. Obviously the Mets are down. There's a lot of Padres are down. This is the year to do it. So if I'm the Marlins, do I mortgage the farm? I think this Monteverde kid who's going to Futures game. I think there'll be a lot of teams that would like him. It's a pretty good trade piece, but I guess you do it if you feel you can go to the playoffs and make a deep run. Some of that's also going to have to be as Sandy looks strong, because you're you're going to need your rotation to a few anchors that you say, because that's the thing back in 03, the Marlins rotation was strong enough. They even injured Beckett, they can make the Adrian Gonzalez for your Urbina trade, who was at the time, Urbina was the top reliever on the market. They helped them win a World Series. They got rid of a perennial all-star, but they won the ring, and that's a debate for another time. But I'm kind of in the Jack McKeon camp. You take the ring. You take the ring. You could always get another first baseman. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Rings just don't come all the time. So, what is that looking like? If Sandy looks like Cy Young Sandy in a couple of weeks, and Luzardo looks real, and Braxton Garrett can get you to the finish line, then I might go for a reliever, just to help reinforce that bullpen, and just think, and maybe if you do something, you get a bat, but maybe that bat's more of a complimentary bat who's a good fit in what they're doing, because we've seen the Adam Duvall type trades and such happen and be, be good quality players without having to go get, and I'm just, like a Goldschmidt or something like that, who won't be on the market, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Joe, excellent job. Man on Second, where you're covering everything around the world of baseball. Tell everybody everything you got going on here. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm doing something with a group. We're at the grassroots level right now, in addition to my MLB coverage. We're doing a baseball camp. We're calling it the Baseball Highlights Network. It's on July 12th. On my social, I have a flyer out there and I'm really targeting as these uncommitted. We have so many really good high school players down here looking for college opportunities. If you're uncommitted, junior, senior, and even if you have a commit, we're going to have at least one pro team is out there. I'm trying to get the Marlins to go out there. It's 2 days. It's actually a day after the All-Star break on the 12th of July. Go to my @Joe Frisaro, JoeFrisaro at Twitter handle. You'll see the flyer there. I have an email address. Like I said, I'm hoping that there are kids out there or parents that want their kids to get exposure. But I'm really happy to do stuff at the prep level and try to help some of these kids get into colleges and advance their careers past high school. So that's pretty rewarding for me at this stage of my career.
Awesome. So again, @Joe Frisaro, real easy, and of course @Man on Second. And a really cool opportunity for young players who are looking to continue playing ball. Excellent job, Joe. Thanks a lot for joining us here. I appreciate it.
As anytime, my friend. You be good.